Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino, along with Kimberly Guilfoyle, Juan Williams, Jesse Waters, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 9 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. We begin tonight with multiple major developing stories. First, President Trump is on Air Force One en route to Saudi Arabia on his first overseas trip as commander-in-chief. But there's breaking news here on the home front. More bombshell reports about the Russia investigation. According to the New York Times, in a meeting with Russian officials at the White House, President Trump called ousted FBI Director James Comey a, quote, nut job. And that has his firing relieved, quote, great pressure on the president, relieved great pressure on the president. Meanwhile, the Senate Intelligence Committee announced today that Mr. Comey has agreed to publicly testify sometime after Memorial Day. And then the Washington Post also out with a report saying a senior White House advisor is now a person of interest in the Russia probe. Here to break all of this down for us is Chief White House Correspondent John Roberts, who is already in Saudi Arabia. And before we get to that breaking news, John, since this is the first time we've had a chance to talk about it, I wondered if you could just sort of set up this trip for us and the expectations for the meeting in Saudi Arabia itself.
All right, so the president will arrive here at 9:50 local time. It's just 4 a.m. now. See, he's here in about 5 hours and 50 minutes. He's going to be meeting with King Salman today, the Crown Prince, the Deputy Crown Prince. One of the big days is going to be on Sunday, where he will have lunch with some 40 or 50 leaders from the Gulf Cooperation Council. He'll give a big address there on terrorism, and then he heads to Israel. And if the schedule holds, Dana, it will be the very first time that a publicly announced flight has gone directly from Saudi Arabia to the Jewish state. From there, he goes to Rome, where he's going to meet the Pope at the Vatican. Then he travels to Brussels for the NATO summit. Then he goes back to Sicily, to Taormina, for the G7 summit. So he's doing 5 countries, meeting about 20 leaders or chief dignitaries from a lot of different countries. So this is a very big and very ambitious first foreign trip. Most leaders, and you'll remember this from George W. Bush, they either go south of the border to Mexico or they go north of the border to Canada. But the president's got a very ambitious trip for his first foray abroad. Dana?
It's a very bold choice, and I love the concept of the trip in terms of combating intolerance. We're going to take it around the table here. We'll start with Kimberly Guilfoyle.
All right. Okay, John, I hope you enjoy that trip. I'm sure it's going to be quite interesting. So I wanted to know what level of, preparation they have done with the president in light of, some of the past things he said about Saudi Arabia and the U.S. relationship and Clintons and Clinton Foundation to really streamline this trip so it's one that's very positive.
Well, the president's done a lot of research. He's had meetings for the past couple of weeks, interspersed, of course, with the odd crisis here and there. But I'll tell you something about Saudi Arabia. They are very happy with this president, particularly in comparison to the last president. The reason why is because they think that he is on the same page not only with combating terrorism, but he also shares their view that Iran is an existential threat to our Arab allies in the region. So when you hear Adel al-Jubeir, who is the Saudi foreign minister, talk about President Trump, it is in glowing terms. And I know that our allies in Egypt and Jordan and other areas, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Oman, they all talk about him in the same way. They are, to really put it bluntly, thrilled that he is the president, and they're thrilled that he's coming here. If you go up and down the boulevards here in Riyadh, you see big posters of President Trump alongside King Salman. So it's a real red carpet welcome for the president here in Saudi Arabia, Kimberly.
All right, Jesse Waters.
Kimberly just brought up the arms deal. Big package, $110 billion or something like that. Lockheed Martin's going to get paid a lot of money. Apparently there was some controversy because Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, got involved last minute, trying to knock the price down a little bit. What are the benefits for the arms deal for America and for Saudi Arabia?
I don't necessarily think that that's controversial, Jesse. I think it really impressed Saudi leaders when they came to visit with him. And they want what's called the THAAD missile system. It's the same one that we sent to South Korea, Terminal High Altitude Area Defense. And the necessity for it was shown earlier today when Houthi rebels in Yemen fired a ballistic missile towards Saudi Arabia. Anti-missile systems here took it down about 120 miles southwest of Riyadh in the middle of an unpopulated area of the desert. In terms of what it means for the United United States. It's a lot of money for our defense corporations. But what Jared Kushner did was, when the Saudi officials were at the White House for a meeting about this, they said that they wanted the THAAD system, and he said, well, he was worried that they were worried about the price. So he called up the CEO of Lockheed and said, right in front of them, and said, hey, is there something we can do about the price here? We don't know what Lockheed is doing about the price, but we do know that Saudi Arabia wants the THAAD missile system. They want to really overhaul their entire armed forces, and the United States is going to help them do that with this $110 billion package, Jesse.
Good. All right, Juan Williams, what do you have?
John, very interested in these reports coming out of Washington that the investigators have now identified a person of interest who is close to the president. So, of course, everybody's thinking, who could this be? You know, who in the White House is this person that has been identified? Do you have anything to say?
Nobody knows in the United States. The Independent newspaper and the Guardian newspaper have identified that person as Jared Kushner. There's nothing to suggest that it is Jared Kushner. But do remember that during the transition, Jared Kushner was sort of the point person for contacting foreign officials to try to build relationships so that when the inauguration happened and Donald Trump took over as president, you didn't have to start from scratch here. So we do know that Jared Kushner talked with Russian officials. He had an in-person meeting with Sergei Kislyak, the Russian ambassador to the United States, back in December, early December, I believe it was, and Lieutenant General Michael Flynn was in that same meeting. So there's nothing to say that it is Jared Kushner. There's nothing really other than this Washington Post report to say that investigators have identified a person of interest. It's interesting, though, to me, Juan, that this little piece of information was dished to the Washington Post just as Robert Mueller is taking over the investigation and will kind of gobble up everything himself. And he is well known for running a tight ship, one that will probably be reasonably leak-proof, I would think, Juan.
All right, Greg Gutfeld?
Hello, John. I just want to point out that while we're doing this, CNN is reporting that Donald Trump isn't really in Saudi Arabia, but on a soundstage in Russia. It's being directed by Putin. This is all a big sham, much like the moon landing. Hey, I just have a question for you, fellow.
Real question.
As a reporter to a journalist, how is the alcohol situation in Saudi Arabia?
The only alcohol that I have found in Saudi Arabia was on our airplane when we landed, and I don't know what the disposition of the alcohol has been since we embarked from the aircraft. So I really couldn't tell you. There's a lot of near beer here, I can tell you that, and a lot of near wine as well.
Sorry to hear that.
But John, before we let you go, I wanted to ask you, since you've been to Saudi Arabia several times in your career, and one of the princes who has taken it upon himself to try to open up and provide more tolerance and even some more fun for the Saudis that are living there. Can you, in your limited time that you've been there in the past 24 hours, do you notice a difference? No.
Yeah, I've actually, this is my first time I've been to Saudi Arabia. I've been to Kuwait. I lived in Kuwait for 6 months, not 6 months, 6 weeks, just prior to the 2003 war. But this is the first time I've actually been in Saudi Arabia. And we arrived at 8 o'clock at night, and it's now 4 o'clock in the morning. So I'm afraid, Dana, as curious an individual as I am, I haven't really had much of a chance to discover any differences.
One thing I can tell you, though.
No. One thing I can tell you, though, and you remember back to Bush 41 and the relationship that he had with the Saudi leadership.
Yeah, very good.
And relations with Saudi Arabia are all about interpersonal relationships. That's why President Obama had such a difficult time here in Saudi Arabia, because the relationship was fairly chilly. President Trump, it looks like, is going to have a similar relationship with King Salman and the Crown Prince as Bush 41 did back in the day. So, I think that could potentially bode very well for U.S.-Saudi relations.
Well, we'll just thank you in advance for all the work you'll do on this trip. Obviously, you can see up there in the top left corner, it is 4:09 a.m. So we'll let you get back to it. I don't know if you're eating breakfast or going back to bed, but thank you so much, John.
And I'll keep my eyes open for signs of fun here in Riyadh.
Okay.
Yeah, get back to us.
Toby Keith concert, maybe. I guess you'll get to go.
Thanks.
All right. Well, that's because Toby Keith's giving a concert, Kimberly, and it's only men are allowed. I'm kind of surprised the White House agreed to that, but I like Toby Keith.
What are you going to do? At least he's there, and the boys will be able to enjoy a good concert.
They'll enjoy it.
Get a couple clips of it.
we expect the president to give us a pretty significant speech when it comes to Saudi Arabia and setting the stage for this idea of combating intolerance. And the arms deal was also a part of that, which is to say, we are coming back around to a better relationship with Saudi Arabia. We're going to help you provide the resources that you need, but we need your help in fighting terrorism. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is such a positive platform for the president. This is one he should really seize, especially in terms of this like media storm around Russia and collusion and a special counsel being appointed. This is an area where the president excels in terms of interpersonal relationships. We've seen him have really great meetings with other foreign leaders thus far early in his presidency. And as John predicted, this should be one. The forecast is sunny for his relationship with Saudi Arabia, which should be, a key ally, especially in the fight against terror. I think it's important that his people get out, the good press, the messaging on this, his communication team, and those that are with him, to kind of help bring back some stories to make sure they get positive, play here, that it's actually really covered by the press versus just some of the stuff that's going on kind of back home domestically, with the investigations. And if you notice, there was as they said on the earlier, a document dumper, right? On a Friday, a lot of information coming out just as they were leaving. And of course, not with their phones and stuff with them, but other devices, to try to, get around this story. And just real quick, Dana, about the Jared Kushner and the, person of interest. That's very different than being a target of an investigation. That means that's somebody that you would just like to speak to, but people shouldn't take that to mean any kind of impropriety or the subject, or target of an investigation.
Right. People are getting ahead of themselves on that. Jesse, it is important, I think, for America to have a great trip for President Trump, so that can sort of feel like we are back on the world stage in a sort of more of a commanding way. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he looks great going up into the plane with Melania. We talked about that yesterday. It's very good to be there with the First Lady. Air Force One looks fantastic. I've been there. Pretty nice jet, and I'm sure everyone's enjoying it immensely. A lot of this is about optics. You want to see the president there as the commander-in-chief and, putting forth the American vision for the world and selling a lot of arms to our friends. We want to make sure oil stays low, obviously, because high gas prices here in America could just shatter this guy's base. But it comes at a very troubling time, and I've been the first one to say, there's a lot of smoke, but I don't see any fire. But now I'm getting a little concerned. A lot of reports today out about targets and some things that were said to the Russians, and even myself, I've gotten to the point where I'm like, what is going on here with this situation? I'm a little worried about it. I still don't see any hard evidence yet, but the smoke keeps getting a little bit hotter, and they need to do something to really tamp this thing down because it's swirling really fast.
But as Dershowitz said, there isn't anything that he's suggesting.
Not yet. It's getting pretty hot in the kitchen, though, Kimber.
But I want to say, stop the press. Jesse Waters actually thinks there's news here?
I don't know if it's news, but I'm reading a lot of reports from the mainstream media. Could be fake news, one. A lot of anonymous sources. Listen, I'll hedge.
This is the guy I know, America.
Could be a lot of anonymous sources with fake news, but a ton of leaks. Coming out of the FBI and out of this White House.
I think what's happening now is that you're entering a more active phase of the investigation, and Mueller is bringing in new people, and so they're gathering information. And I think when you have the subpoena out of the grand jury in Virginia for Flynn's financial records, I think the things are getting hotter.
This is leaks from before.
Yeah, I mean, financial, that's not that big of a deal. The collusion thing is the concerning issue. They haven't had anything on that yet, but it looks like they're tightening up some screws.
But the thing is about the Kushner thing is it's so close to the president, son-in-law.
Well, we're going to have a chance to talk about that again. Let me just get Greg in here one last time on either. Well, I wanted to ask you, and you might not want to. You might want to talk about the other issue, but President Obama, when his relationship with Saudi Arabia really deteriorated over the Iran deal, and do you think that there's any way to sort of get this back into a good position where we can work also with our NATO allies to try to push back against the Iranians?
I find it really kind of interesting that probably the least holy man that we know, i.e. Donald Trump, might be the guy that unifies all of these different people. Maybe it takes a guy who doesn't have a dog in this fight to deal with this. And the real issue in this whole trip is extremism. That's what this is about. And it's not Jews and it's not Christians chopping the heads off people. So when he goes to this Saudi Arabia and he talks about extremism, it's about radical Islamic extremism. He's a blunt salesman. Like I say, he could talk a cat off a mice truck. His salesman-like qualities have benefits in this regard, in that he can actually say these things and create a personal relationship. This is related to the Comey stuff. When you're a salesman, the whole position is to be liked, is to create trust. And how do you create trust? You deal in these variables of gossip and in tidbits of information. Yeah. So you sit there and you go, you want the guy from Russia to think that he likes you and you like him, so you go, oh, I just got this nut job off my back. This is the way a salesman talks. And a salesman has the flaw of talking too much. So Donald Trump's flaw, which is to talk too much and say these things casually and gets him into some kind of superficial trouble, I believe superficial trouble, which is what this Comey stuff is to me, is the benefit in these situations abroad in Saudi Arabia, in the sense that he can talk to these people the way Obama didn't. Obama went and was conciliatory and didn't demand respect, but it was just so... He came across as an academic. Trump is going over there with his head held high as a salesman.
No apology to him.
No apologies. And just says, hey, look, we've got problems here. Let's settle it. Again, with the salesman, everything's a negotiation, which is why he says those things to the Russians, why he said those things to Comey about going easy on Flynn, because these are what salesmen do. And this is what he's going to do, hopefully, abroad. So I took those two issues and I smushed them together like a Reese's peanut butter cup.
It was a perfect way to end the block. Coming up, the military is talking about new tactics that will annihilate ISIS. Details up next.
I love it. The Mad Dog is unchained. Secretary of Defense James Mattis today briefed reporters at the Pentagon, where he revealed that President Trump has issued aggressive new orders to take out ISIS.
He directed a tactical shift from shoving ISIS out of seized locations in an attrition fight to surrounding the enemy in their strongholds so we can annihilate ISIS. There is no escape for ISIS. We're there to drive ISIS to its knees.
Oh my God, I can't get enough of the Mad Dog, you know what I mean? Okay, music to my ears. Driving ISIS to its knees, annihilating. Do you love it, Dana?
I do. I like taking the fight to these, you know what?
Oh, Dana.
Sorry.
Are we on delay?
It's interesting. You haven't seen Mattis out there a lot, and they haven't done a lot of the DoD briefings yet, and I think that they would benefit from doing more, because this stuff is good, and I think that it's nice to set it up right before the president's conversations with the different religions, in order to say, look, we got to fight extremism together, and get more extreme than ISIS. The other thing, well, and Al Qaeda, ISIS, which is Al Qaeda 2.0, is ISIS. I think that we forget that the changes to operational procedure has given the Pentagon a lot more flexibility. So during the Obama administration, the National Security Council at the White House really wanted to be able to sign off on every operation. And now what the Trump administration has done is said, actually, no, we trust you. We're going to, on the big stuff, yeah, you're going to have to come to us. But in terms of these types of things, if you want to hit them hard, you have our permission to do what you feel like you need to do. And trusting them, I think, is actually very good for all of us and really bad for ISIS.
All right. Well, what do you think about these comments and the aggressive nature, kind of doing a different campaign against ISIS?
I think the rhetoric clearly pleases you and Dana, but I just wonder if it has any strategic consequences. So you go from a war of attrition to a war of annihilation. So when you look at the ground, you say, wait a second, how's the enemy responding? Guess what? They say they like this rhetoric. They're using it to suggest that it's a war against Islam. And I don't know if that's real. I don't know if this will be effective, but I pay attention. The second thing to say is President Trump has a history, as candidate Trump, of saying that Islam was a religion of violence and saying the worst things about Muslims. Now he goes over there, and you guys say, oh, he's going to bring everybody together.
Well, I don't think he said the worst things about Muslims. He's talking about radical Islamic jihadists, which is very different. Terrorists.
No.
Well, go ahead, Jess.
President Obama wouldn't say radical Islam, and the Saudis hated him.
Right.
President Trump was pretty tough on Muslim jihad, and now the Saudis are embracing him. So I don't know if the rhetoric really adds up.
Let's tell the truth. The Saudis have put so much money, billions of dollars, into spreading Wahhabi, the most extreme form.
And he's going to go over
Islam.
there and he's going to say,
Well,
cut it out, or else that
Oh,
oil
yeah.
Actually,
will go out the
it's
window.
stronger than that. The Saudis are actually going to commit to paper to say that they will, that if
They're
you
gonna stop.
fund terrorists, that you are then going to be in trouble with the Saudi government, which is something you don't want to be.
Good, they should
I
seize
want
the
them to
money,
stop.
too.
Right.
And I also think when Mattis says we are going to kill the enemy, I'm not scared that that's going to make the enemy want to hurt me more.
Yeah, because if they're
wow.
That's
dead,
war, Juan.
if they're
No.
dead, they're done.
You missed the point there, because this is a
You
war.
had a point?
I got a lot of points for you, but I'm just telling you, this is an ideological fight. It's not as if you can wipe them out in one fell swoop, because the internet, Greg has made this point on the show repeatedly,
Let's let him do
they
it.
spread this thing like a cancer.
Okay,
All right.
Greg,
Okay. Number one, the argument that they're going to use our defense against us, like if you use that to the end of its reason, we could never wage a war. If you say, you know what, if you defend yourself, that's only going to make them fight you more. You could never fight a war. We could never have fought World War I, World War II. We might as well just disband the police, because if we have the police, that will just make the criminals rob and murder and rape more, because the police will upset them. If you're in a bar fight, the worst guy to be is the bouncer, because you're often most restricted. Talking about change in procedure, America essentially is Earth's bouncer, and it's good to give us the freedom to bounce, and that means to go and to kill. And it's not a short-term act. This is long-term. Terrorists are the termites of planet Earth. That means you have to go around and you have to exterminate them regularly and never forget about it. The good thing about Trump and why he's different than Obama is he's less handicapped by PC ideology and Islamophobia phobia. He doesn't conflate radical Islam, hating radical Islam, with hating Islam. He makes a distinction which helps you to fight terror more effectively. It's called I won't get into it. But anyway, he's less handicapped. He's more willing to do it.
Right.
That's a good deal.
Okay, and he knows the difference between JV and varsity. Directly ahead, bulletproof evidence of media bias against Trump. You won't believe how bad it is. Stay with us. Oh, yeah.
President Trump often complains about media coverage, and now he has the stats to back it up. A new report from Harvard reveals an incredible degree of animosity from the press towards the president. The majority of the Trump coverage from every news organization in the study was negative. And on the topic of immigration, 96% of the reports were negative. It's gotten so bad that legendary journalist Bob Woodward is warning his media colleagues to tone it down.
I think it's time to dial back a little bit about, because there are people around who are kind of binge drinking the anti-Trump Kool-Aid. Right. And that is not going to work in journalism.
So, speaking of binge drinking, Greg.
Yes. I don't know what that means.
When Mr. Watergate says the media is getting too Watergatey, doesn't that mean they have a problem?
I think that Harvard study. No, that was Harvard. Harvard is admitting bias against Trump. That's like Pizza Hut coming out against carbs. It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
And they said the negativity reaches 98%. I'm wondering the 2% that isn't negative, who that might be. But I got to tell you, this is because the media hasn't accepted the reality of the situation. They wanted Martin Sheen, but they got Charlie Sheen. And by the way, Charlie Sheen is better than Martin Sheen. He has some problems.
Good actor.
He has some problems, but and also they rail against Trump. But Trump provides the media more content than 1,000 Kardashians, and they know it.
Save their jobs.
It saved their job. He made journalism great again.
That's actually a great point. So, Dana, CNN coverage, they led the negative tone.
Okay.
93% of the coverage was negative, and CNN's ratings have been up since Trump's been in office. What do you think that's about?
Well, I think that all media is up across the board. I mean, even the New York Times or Washington Post boast that they have record subscription
Even
increases.
the failing New York Times?
Apparently so he's been good for everyone. I think that this is just a reminder that everybody read with skepticism, watch with skepticism, watch as much as you want. If you really want to be informed, just watch everything with a little bit of a critical eye. I would also mention Vox.com today had an article about the left falling for a lot of fake Russia news, and that it's clouding a lot of judgment. And everyone that is maybe against Trump tunes in every night maybe to CNN because they think, okay, at the end of this rainbow, we're going to get Trump impeached. And that's just so unlikely to happen. I think everyone needs to go enjoy your weekend, Don't worry about this. No one's being impeached.
Watch my show
At
and,
this time.
and Jesse's show.
Absolutely watch the shows.
Fabulous new promo.
That's right. Which they're working on mine. Will come.
Don't hold your breath.
But let me jump in.
go ahead.
Underwater.
Let me jump in here because I think you guys are too high in looking at these numbers. Because
We are too high.
Are we high one?
Yeah, because it's Friday night.
How did
But
you
look
know?
at this. It says
Well,
here
that's right.
Trump gets overwhelmingly positive coverage for the missile strike against Syria, which was supported. So a lot of people, a lot of positive.
That's the one thing.
Wait, hold
It was
on.
positive.
Hold on. So let's go to then,
That
let's
was only
let's
week
dive
12.
into the numbers, Immigration, overwhelmingly negative coverage. Imagine, he's throwing people out of the country who've committed no crimes other than being here.
That is
illegally.
right.
MS
Okay.
13.
Oh,
Okay.
just being here?
How about-
that was their only crime?
If you want to raid families and break up families, go right ahead.
He hasn't
let me-
broken up
let
any
me just say-
families. Except maybe the Manson
Gang
family.
families have been
No,
rounded up.
gang families, ordinary working people. How about health care?
Is MS-13 a family now, Juan?
Let me just say.
a family.
La Familia.
Like the Partridge family with
Never
Nelly.
go against the family.
What about
line.
health care? Has he delivered for Republicans who said repeal and replace? Absolutely
close.
not.
Yeah, they got through
what
the
about
House.
Russia and the election? Negative coverage. Gee, most Americans think Russia interfered in our election and tried to help.
Hey, Kimberly, let's get Kimberly in here.
Yeah, because you don't like what I'm saying.
No, it just doesn't make sense. Kimberly,
Beating you around the head, Jesse.
let's not get hostile on. We don't know how that's going to end. Fox News, the
5
most
seconds
fair
left.
and balanced network out
Yeah.
there, 52%
Right.
negative, 48% positive. What does that say to you, Kimberly?
Fair and balanced? I don't know. I mean, it depends on if you cover the news accurately, fair and balanced. But I'll tell you this, Juan referred to week 12, and that was when he ordered the cruise missile strike on Syria and the air base. So that's 1 week where it was pretty good, right? It was 70% to compare to 30%. But anyway, the problem is that they don't want to cover the positive news because it doesn't fit their narrative and sort of this, soldier march that they have towards this goal of impeachment. They want to just be able to focus on what it is they don't like about them because they still have this election hangover. And because of that, they're cranky, Greg, and they want to just kind of hear what they think, what they believe, and they, I think, gravitate towards coverage like that.
Yeah, so the American people and the polls and Trump, no responsibility. He hasn't done anything.
Well,
he's not tweeting crazy
President
stuff.
Obama had 65% positive
Yeah, gee,
coverage. So,
maybe it's a difference.
do the math.
Jesse, first 100 days, 80% negative and 20% positive.
It's okay.
That's so skewed.
It's a Harvard study, Juan, so you can't argue with it. Joe Biden is taking some post-election shots at Hillary Clinton. You'll hear that next.
You close your eyes.
In the last segment, we were talking about media bias against President Trump. Well, the news never stops on the Fox News channel. Look at this from CNN tonight.
I don't care what he says to the Russians. I mean, he's the president of the United States. If he wants to say that, Barack Obama wants to say whatever. If George Bush says, I looked in his eyes and thought he was
on his
great, I
desk,
saw
you
soul,"
would defend it.
Say it.
Wow. Whoa, baby. You mean to say, he said, just in case you went too quick for you, if Trump took a dump on his desk, you would defend it. I turn to my friend Jesse Waters.
Please, yes.
I mean, this is fresh
This is
off.
perfect for him.
Hey, no cheap shots.
This is fresh off Anderson's eye roll scandal. So, I mean, he definitely does not need this. And then you have, I think, was it Katie Bodine the other day went ballistic on Carl Higbee for saying that they should check the sources. So something's going on there over at CNN. They're starting to melt down, it seems like.
I got a new name for him. Anderson Pooper.
Dana.
Well, when you gotta go, you gotta go. So it would be defensible.
What has happened
I'm
here?
telling you, we're out of
It just turned into
control.
like South Park or
Well, okay.
Beavis and
Well, no, but I mean, okay, think about it. Who's
What?
the conversation has changed. Let's be honest, in the last 18 months, Donald Trump introduced the construction worker site way of communicating. It's how he beat everybody. And now everybody's kind of learning. Yeah, everybody's imitating. And sometimes it doesn't work. Like that probably didn't work.
Because Anderson Cooper's a Vanderbilt. He doesn't sell that. He doesn't speak like that.
But
And
here's the thing.
wait a second. CNN's been defending Barack Obama taking dumps for 8 years. So, I mean, come on.
I don't know about that.
But you can definitely get away with that. You're no Vanderbilt.
Take it to a new level. If
But you
only.
know what? To me, he's playing to Democrats, far left, don't like Trump, don't want to hear a defense of Trump. But boy, that's pretty low.
But why do they keep? I mean, what would you expect from that guest? That guest has been.
That's why they have him. That's right. That's why he's there.
So don't ask a guest on and then beat him up for doing
Well,
what
they love
you know
it.
he's going to do.
They do it on purpose. It's like a setup, and they're like, okay, and then but listen, I don't know. Anderson is I don't know. I found him to be much better behaved than that.
But let me just say, so this is blowing up on Twitter tonight. That's why we brought it to you. We were going to do a segment about Joe Biden saying that Hillary's not a great candidate. He is a great candidate.
Let's do that one.
Well, go ahead.
I love it.
A little late.
I love it. I think, you know what? Good for him. He's telling the truth. We always knew it. We always knew that that's how he felt.
Okay, but he's okay.
And it's true.
It's one thing to be an armchair quarterback on Monday, but an armchair quarterback on Thursday.
Right.
I mean, he waited this long.
Yeah, and I could imagine all of you.
Party loyal, I think, and
you, Kimberly Guilfoyle, would have attacked him as Uncle Joe. Brought up every time that he said something stupid.
She loves him.
He plagiarized.
She loves Biden.
Incorrect.
But he plagiarized. He did it. You would have.
She loves Biden.
It would have been salami on your plate.
Well, hey, basically what's happening is Joe Biden is setting it up so that Kimberly will get that chance in 3 years.
He'll be 78 years old,
Dana and Greg, as you
President
recall,
Trump will be 74. At that point, I don't think, when you're in your 70s, the 70s are the new 50s.
Yeah.
That's true.
Biden and Trump running against each other would be the best matchup
Joe Biden is very high energy. He also enjoys midnight swims, which I think is a very good thing to put on your profile.
Goodness. I think
Not
he
like
said
midnight
skinny dipping.
dipping.
That's what I thought you were saying.
People haven't eaten dinner, Kimberly.
Always loved Joe Biden. I
Isn't
really
it weird
do. I
how
think he's authentic
it's called
and
skinny
so
dip,
cool.
but very rarely are they skinny?
What do you
I know,
want
it's like when you go to a nude beach, it's never good naked.
Fat dip? I don't understand.
We have just,
I don't
just
even know
lowered
what to
ourselves
say to you
Anderson land.
anymore, America, so stay right there. Facebook Friday is coming up.
There you
Just
go.
don't like it. Okay, it's Facebook Friday. We answer your questions. Let's begin. I'm going to start with Dana here. This is from Victoria E. If you had a theme song, what would that theme song be? Great question, Victoria E. Come on.
I feel like that would be better if we were asking, like, if I got to choose Jesse's theme song. Theme song for
That'd
me?
be Jesse's girl.
I wish that I was Ted Jesse's girl. That's mine.
I did love Rick Springfield and had that poster. That's true.
Wow.
You got to
Remember when people had posters? That was funny. Huh?
I had posters.
I still have posters.
Sean Cassidy.
Yeah, I have him. Anyway.
Dana, you didn't pick one.
I'm trying to think of something appropriate and sunshiny.
Okay, you guys say, I don't want to have the questions beforehand, and then you don't have the answer after.
I had the answer.
All right, what?
Jesse's girl. I had it.
All right, that's the song that
That's my theme song.
All right, Juan, how about you?
I like It Takes Two to Make a Thing Go Right. I think that's a lot of fun, right? I like Bob Dylan.
Also
When Bob Dylan talks about like a Rolling Stone, because he's just talking down to this girl, and just telling her. I like.
Juan, I sense a theme. Kimberly, what's your theme
I
song?
don't know. People always say,
What?
What do they say, Kimberly?
legs.
Oh.
But I always get that on the boats.
I
could check
I got a song.
Oh, stop it, Juan. Can we move on before we have to go?
Girls just want to have fun.
Yeah.
I have one.
What?
Friends in Low Places.
I said friends in high places for you.
At least
That's not a song.
I thought you would have picked Short People.
She has a lot of
But you know what I picked? I picked the Facts of Life theme song. Because I feel like I'm like Mrs. Garrett if she were still alive.
Facts of Life are all about you.
Yes.
Way to go, Mrs. Doubtfire.
All right. This is a great one. I'm going to start with you, Kimberly. This is from Jean A. What one place have you already visited that, if you had to, could live there forever?
What color am I wearing tonight?
Ireland.
Thank you.
Yes. Interesting.
I'm surprised because the weather's terrible.
Oh, but I love it. I love Ireland. You know, I lived there every summer since I was 5 years of age, and then I went to college to school at Trinity College in Dublin, Ireland. Loved it.
What about you, Juan? Where have you visited?
Well, I just got back. I mean, this took the grandkids, everybody down to the Caribbean, to Bocas del Toro it's an archipelago outside of Panama. And I thought it was the most beautiful place I'd ever seen on earth. And I mean,
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was stunning.
What about you,
wanna go there.
Jesse?
I was just at a pre-scheduled planned vacation in Grand Cayman, and that was a beautiful island. So free.
It was planned for months. It was planned for your family was already there.
They were there already.
Can you show us a receipt?
I met them there. Yes. Timestamp receipt.
Yeah, do you have a timestamp travel itinerary, preferably from American
Oh, my
Express
God.
that can be authenticated
Yes, I do need a
forensically?
reimbursement, as a matter of fact.
Dana?
I'd say the low country of South Carolina.
The low
country.
Everything's low with you. I guess so you
There's
can
a
reach
theme.
things. Everything's
You can
at
reach
the
them.
high country, you can't get the stuff off the
can
shelf.
reach them.
I know that feeling. I keep everything on the
I
floor
put
for
my
me.
plates on the bottom shelves, like on the.
If I had to live in a place forever, I would probably pick Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Really?
Very affordable.
Wow.
If you're gonna live forever and you gotta
So you're gonna
save money.
you're gonna
It's
go
gonna save money. I lived there for 10 years. I could live 1,000
gonna
years.
go
But I
back
mean, it's
to
like
your
you gotta work on a budget. I can't like pick Tulum or the Bahamas. I'm gonna be broke. But if I live in, you live in Allentown, you go to the dollar. You can stretch $1. You can still get a beer for 65 cents.
Didn't Bruce
Probably
Springsteen
like
do a
to
song about
No,
it?
that's Billy Joel.
live
Billy
in
Joel.
Italy, I
Same
think.
difference.
Italy's good. Yeah.
There's a place called Beers Around the World Lenses. I don't think it's still there, but you could take a pile of coins, put it on the bar, and drink all night.
Okay, little one, let's go now.
How many? If I had $1 for every time you said that to me. Oh, this next question was so good. All right,
What
one
was
more.
it? Wait, what was it?
If you were able to be in one conversation in history, which would you choose?
Oh.
Save it for next
Reagan
Friday.
and Thatcher.
One more thing next. Go.
It's time now for one more thing, Mr. Greg.
I've been informed that Charlotte Rae is still alive at 92, and I'm very happy because I love Charlotte Rae, Mrs. Garrett. Anyway, tomorrow night, the Greg Gutfeld Show, 10 o'clock. It's going to be pretty amazing. I got Rob O'Neill and Michael McDonald, who's a great comedian, Cat and Tires. But back to me, please. You know that joke? There's always a joke, a rabbi, a priest, and an imam walk into a bar. Well, kind of like that on the show, but they walk on my show to talk about Donald Trump's visit.
Donald
This
Trump,
is called the bar fight.
Donald
I
Trump
think.
had been the cause of many of the rise of Islamophobia. Not only Islamophobia, anti-Semitism as well.
Let me say with great respect to Imam Shamsi, Donald Trump is the only one who finally punished Assad for killing Muslims and Arabs.
Yeah.
And
It was a fiery debate. Tune in.
And you have great promotion.
Yes.
Jesse, you're next.
Well, we're hearing that Hillary's email investigation might be reopened. So I went to go check to see if I could get a statement from the former Secretary of State in Chappaqua, where she likes to hang out in the woods. You guys seen Hillary?
I have it. Not today.
Okay. Let me know I'm out here, okay? Tell her Waters World is here. I'm with her! Still nothing. So that's Saturday at 8 o'clock before Greg's show.
Is it?
There you have it.
Watch his show, then my show.
And that was it. That was it.
We will be sure to tune in. Check this out. A little premature celebration going on. Check out this rider. He crosses what he thinks is the finish line, and he starts celebrating, okay? But he's 6 kilometers from the end. This was the biggest cycling race in Europe. It's the Giro d'Italia. It happened on Wednesday, and he got swallowed up by the peloton right behind him.
Oh, no.
How embarrassing, right? Not good for the Slovenian. Not good. But pretty funny for us.
Happen?
All right, Kimberly.
So bizarre. Okay, so my friend George Neumeier has a new book out called The Political Pope, How Pope Francis is Delighting the Liberal Left and Abandoning Conservatives. We talked about this on the show. It's fantastic, Greg. So the left has tried to politicize the Vatican and the pontiff. And now with the Catholic Church, there is a whole battle to try to do that because many feel like this is just eroding the main core values of the Catholic Church. So it's a fascinating read, Greg. And in fact, I'm surprised you didn't write this book, but George did, and he's a fantastic author. So check it out.